you're free for the rest of the weekend?
No.
Well, just studying.
I actually have something to do on Sunday.
Oh gosh. Wow. Okay.
That's a
Definitely. Our money's worth out of here.
yeah, I somehow ended up being my business.
Okay.
And Albert, can we share it with you, or do you want to run a thumb drive, or I don't know if we have it.
The thumb drive is better.
Okay, we got it. We have it. Do you have a thumb drive we can borrow, Albert?
Yes, sir.
Take your time. Sorry. It sounds like it might be easier for him if we put it on the drive, but he's going to give you a thumb drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Right, exactly. Here, okay.
But it was very similar to the
Would these maps be on that website? Not today, but in the future.
For people that have your hotspot and maybe put our presentation in the form of PowerPoint onto this. Hey, how are you? Nice.
31, 700, 1 mile away from 6.
We've got our presentation. It's on
Oh, you insinuating that I want to sit?
Yeah, I thought your name was.
I'm a,
See that? I don't believe in one being alone. I would need two. And the problem is,
they was actually get the platform, get a website.
This is already kind of a, I was on this track already.
send me
I know.
I'm gonna tell her.
I'm not police. I made it in a rush.
Oh, okay, she's she had been like in a long time, but she said so. Oh my God.
I mean, at least they're.
I just paid for them to be there. I would help. When you get down to the last pool, it's good. Good for like just young people. I might get
I told myself that I was doing more than that.
They roll. They roll. They roll.
Got that ring.
Let me go. Come on. Let me show you.
Yes.
yes, yes.
She said that she thought that y'all had talked about. Seriously, y'all like, what's that like?
Yes.
So,
Secretary of State's on.
did y'all talk about flood schools or just?
When did you start talking about that? You can't get an eye.
The ones?
Yes. So that was not an hour. That's from down.
That is both right, but not necessarily right. The digging, so the lake is gonna lot of, they end up with like programs around downtown Jackson. Yeah, it's South Shore. But what that does is it makes, you know, because the river is only really pipe. When they dig it out, it becomes a bigger pipe. And so when you get a bigger pipe, water, more water, and so, well, we're gonna do that, we're gonna dig around Jackson, and so we're gonna just lower the flooding north. So, the study that we put out 5 years ago, it shows how much the water will drift based on the floods. Were y'all here in 2012? Yeah. Did y'all? So that was, I think that's really cool. Something that on average was under 85 years. That one around 2012 or Rolling Heights. The river is supposed to be maybe, I think it's 3 feet or so.
I'm so wrong.
So, it's not, it affects you guys, and it would help. So, what we could do is, we do have maps of, 7 members.
Yeah, I got it.
That's, do you know your home's
No, our neighbors told us that water was just on the same floor. And we're up above, going up to the game. And then we're down here. So it never even came from the neighbors that told us, she said, we just wanted to buy just say.
I'm going to write that. I'm going to look at this map. We have on the wall, we have a flood map. Okay. There's some truth to that, but it definitely won't be on 70. No, I hear you.
My wife wants to question.
No, so it's not certain that anyone's going to buy out the neighborhood level. So when we talk about buyouts, there's in 2018, a local government agency called the Rankin-Hines Program Flood Drainage Control District put out a study talking about the land. And the whole purpose of the plan is to reduce the flood levels. Yeah, right. So, you know how I said that it lowers flood levels? Yeah. Well, if it lowers flood levels by
I'm trying to.
Can I make the pedestrian
flood, right?
and I work at home?
Says that
So you know they have they just built the house Parkway. Well, I went to get there when 6 times she did it.
They go through so there's no certainty that but it is an option.
So get jobs just not posted.
No, I don't think that there's any certainty. They're interested in land around downtown. The problem is just that
I'm just gonna scratch you this road right here. And then here's watermelon, grape, and a mushroom.
I got banana, strawberry, banana bar, grape,
if the right people were in charge of this project, they would be trying to find, if you're trying to build a plan that actually helps them, as opposed to just giving something.
What do you want to protect when it actually floods there compared to houses that are not so much as in that area of flood, like ours? The area that floods a lot, farmlands are on Canton Road, Jackson County,
They get a lot of, yeah, along the tree. Yeah. That would be protected by different plans. So different plans all today.
One time I'm gonna flag, if you right on it. And I'm gonna flag on it, right on your turn.
I'm working under the belief that the right plan is one that will protect people are investing in East River, and also protect places like Canada. And so my problem is that you know, it helps more. It actually helps East River, and it helps Jackson Academy a lot more than it helps Chelsea. And my value is because not correct. That should actually benefit.
Like I say, that flood of 2020 was so full of from us that it really wasn't cause for concern because arbitration was just several blocks down by Jim.
Yeah.
Cedric and all this, you got flooded from his backyard, but it's a creek. It's in a way that cleaned the creek out, it will make the flooding less.
Yes, there are cases of people that clearing them out would reduce the less flooding, right? Removing a lot of debris. We were walking around here yesterday and looking at we saw so yes, clearing those things out.
What's that? James. Yeah, been with us for a while. And this is what I say.
I didn't hear his last name. Yes, my daughter.
Dave.
They see oh, she's behind me. Hey.
Okay.
What's wrong, Papa?
He was just asking our name.
Oh.
So I think we're running a little late, so I'm gonna Albert, how are you feeling? You think we're ready?
No, y'all don't have the same thing. Blueberry. I'm no eat blueberry. call not today's date.
Okay.
And I read it later.
There again, just on my leg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, you're back together again. It's amazing, you're doing awesome. We're gonna get started, so everyone come in and put your seats, and excuse me for sitting down, but I have bad news. I forgot my cane. So I'm gonna have to sit. My name is Ramona Taylor Williams. Most people call me Miss Ramona. You got my hair. It's truly an honor. I just was reading the other day about a woman, I can't remember her name. One of the students actually introduced me to this lady. She was civil rights activist, and she was lived here in Mississippi, and so she was brought up in the courts for her activism around voting rights and those things that we fight so diligently for. And the prosecutor, when he was interrogating her, he refused to call her Miss, and just referred to her by her first name. And she refused to respond and answer. And during that time, I wasn't aware that to be referred to as Miss was a statement of honor and respect. So by him referring to her by her first name, he was actually belittling her. And so the judge insisted that she answer this question, and she refused. And he held her in contempt of court. And so she was in prison because she refused to give up her dignity. And that really touched my heart because it's a constant reminder of the struggle that we have encountered in our journey in this country since we were brought here. And it made me look at things a little different because I thought that the young people and that everyone referred to me as Miss Ramona because I'm old. Right? But it was the respect, you know, and it's the honor. And I feel honored for that. So my name is Ramona. Ramona Taylor Williams, and I am the Executive Director of Mississippi Community, United for Prosperity. We recently went through a rebranding. Some of you have heard this story, but there was this morning. We recently went through rebranding of our name. We started out in the small community up in called Duck Hill, Mississippi. That's right off the 55. And Duck Hill sits, it's 12 miles north of Winona and 12 miles south of Grenada. And we started working in that community to help them to identify and look at solutions around flooding. So I live in Jackson. I've always lived in Jackson since moving here. This is my anniversary month. My husband and I moved here in 2016 from St. Louis. So I feel like I've been here 7 years now. So I'm officially a Jackson homer. I love it. So we're going to open up our meeting as we do with all of our community gatherings with prayer, and going to ask our clergy to lift us up in prayer this morning. Brother Dion Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. Let us bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father God, we thank you for this gathering once again. You brought us safely across another decade to this time. We thank you for the families that are represented here, and we certainly thank you for the solutions that we're looking for. We pray that your love, your mercy, and your grace would abide with us, and that we would come to a comprehensive resolution to this issue that we're facing. And we know that you're going to give us all that we need. We thank you for the resources as well. These and all blessings we do ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so we need to know who's in the space. And I wanted one of our CAB members, our Community Advisory Board members, to welcome everyone to the space. So come on and do that real quick.
I'm Yolanda Baggett, and I'm on the Parkway Community Neighborhood. And we just want to thank everybody for coming and at least listening to hear the facts and know what's out to stop the flooding in our neighborhoods and just make our neighborhoods better. MCUP and these other environmentalists, they do more than just, you know, stop the flooding. They just find out what makes your neighborhood become more valuable, what you can do to stop whatever's going wrong in your neighborhood. If it's drainages, there are stops that need to be cleaned out, you know, have the proper way to go about doing things just to make sure everything is better. Can everybody hear me?
This is
Okay,
good.
good.
There's Yolanda. I say go ahead and talk in the microphone so outside folks can hear you too.
Oh, okay. But anyway, we just want to thank all of them for coming to help us to just make our neighborhoods more valuable and bring the value up in our neighborhoods so that we can all just continue with life and go on and not have any problem with flooding, with, you know, potholes or any of that kind of stuff. We thank you all for coming and listening and understanding what we're really about and what we're trying to do.
So let's do a little neighbor-to-neighbor engagement real quickly. We're going to ask everyone to please introduce themselves, what neighborhood they live in. We are focusing on 3 neighborhoods, and that's why we call ourselves 3 communities with one common agenda. We know that the common agenda that is bringing us all together is the flooding and quality of life issue. So I'm going to pass it on to Juan. Juan is on MCUP's team.
Hey y'all, Juan Fernandez, happy to be here.
like Jolanda said, to try to connect you with a lot of the information that's out there, but for one reason or another, you are not receiving. I am not from the three communities. I live in Bellhaven. However, my interest in this, I grew up in Jackson, and I feel like all my life I always heard about something like the One Lake Project that's going to turn around the city. It's going to finally make the city great. But the cruelty is that this is infrastructure. That money is meant to be for infrastructure that actually helps you, not make somebody else richer. And that's what I'm here for, to make sure that we can fight for the right thing, to make infrastructure work for us. So I'm going to pass the mic to you, sir. Sam, right? James, the microphone's right in front of you.
Papa, reach out.
You want to introduce yourself real quick? Just tell us your name and where you live and maybe what brought you here.
I'm James Fells. I live on Valley Vista, my wife and my daughter. What brought us here was the concern that everyone in the neighborhood has about the flooding issues. We want to get more insight and see what can be done to improve everything.
Thank you, James. Split up? Did I get?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I have the mic in front. You will just tell us your name.
Your name.
And where about your out here?
My name is Linda Fields. Like my husband said, they were just here in concern dealing with the flooding issues in our area and everything, and dealing with the potholes and stuff. So we're just here for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll pass it. All right.
I'm Dion Thompson, North Canton Club, and as Warren said, we're here to make sure that we get the facts and that we are empowered so we can put forth a great effort with these resources that we have about the flooding and making our neighborhoods better, safer, and stronger.
My name is Money Powell III. I'm here based on some of the massive issues that we have with our community in general. Just here to see what's going on.
Yeah, my name is Wallace Jones. I'm here because I own 3 or 4 houses out there that has been flooded in the past, and financially it created a burden. And I'm just hoping it won't happen again. I hope that we can do something through the city workers that help us out.
My name is James Donaldson. I live on Parkway, so I'm part of Colonial Heights. And I'm grateful for my neighbor down the street who let me know something's going on. We need more information and we need to get it out to more of the community members. So I'm grateful that we start with us and make sure that we lead for telling somebody else. But I too am here to find out what's going on.
Dominic DeLeo, resident of Jackson, and agree with Juan. Whatever happens here, I want to see that it benefits the city and the city residents.
Good morning. My name is Frederick Nolan. My wife Tamika is working, so she's around. We live in Sedgwick, and just wanting to understand about the 2 lakes that was told when it was dead now to the 1 lake. So something ain't right. So I'm here for information.
Good morning. My name is Michael Robinson. I'm in the McLeod area on Romney, and I missed the last meeting that you all had, so I am trying to get more information as well as I seek information for myself also.
Good morning. I'm Jill Mastrototaro. I'm the Mississippi Policy Director for Audubon Delta. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning on this Component 1 presentation. And I'll be talking a little bit about the many serious threats that One Lake Plan poses to frontline communities as well as the program.
Good morning. My name is Louis Miller. I'm the state director for Sierra Club. I'm a native Jacksonian. And I'm here because this is an issue that's near and dear to me. It's somebody who but his political teeth on the Sharko Dam project back in the 80s. And we'd like to see Jackson actually get flood control rather than real estate development.
Good morning. My name is Avery Bergeron. I'm one of the Columbia students that are working with MCUP. And we're just really happy to be here and hopefully work with you guys and try and help figure out some solutions.
Good morning. My name is Claire Gio.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew Pontius. I'm also here to help in any way I can. We're here to actually do some information collection. So hopefully whatever information we gather today, we can use to help fight.
Sam Zimmel, also with the Columbia team, and yeah, it's just an honor to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Marcella Pettifred. I'm also here with the Columbia team. Just grateful to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, Abby Brayman with a nonprofit called Pearl Riverkeeper, and one of our goals is to read all the documents as they come out and then be able to inform the community of what's in the documents, because I feel like the community has not been engaged otherwise. So we're here to help and engage with MCUP, Mona, helping get the word out.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Page of the Kent Pub community, and of course I have been in my location for over 20 years, and I only experienced really one big flood that actually got into the home. The second flood did not get into the home. I'm back there on Foxborough Drive, where everyone usually comes to look to see how far the water has came. And I am here, I'm a part of the committee as well, but I am here as well to get more knowledge of what's going on.
Hi, my name is Carl Nichols. I live on Parkway Drive, and try to stay active in my neighborhood association and in my community. So I'm here to try to gain knowledge of the information that's being shared and be able to even impart it to those who apparently have scheduling conflicts and not able to make it, but no less, they'll be impacted as well as us. So I feel like somebody needs to be able to tell them what we learned here. My goal is to be able to do that.
My name is James Smell. I live on Allstate Drive. I've been there a little over 10 years now, and I've been noticing a lot of change in the neighborhood for transformers, flooding, and stuff like that. So I just want to know how can we be effective by providing information so we make the right decision.
The first time the transformers come out, we're critical, very critical. So we've got a couple people who just came in. They can go ahead, they can introduce themselves when they get in and sit down and get some breakfast. Yeah, so the purpose of the meeting, everything begins with purpose, right? And this whole thing about the One Lake Plan and all of the different iterations that this thing is going through. The brother here, he mentioned the Two Lake Plan, and then now it's the One Lake Plan, and now they're even rebranding it now because the One Lake Plan has so many negative connotations to it. So they are rebranding, and I think, what are they calling it now, Juan?
The last I heard was the Pearl River Restoration Project.
Okay, the Pearl River Restoration Project. I want to throw out some kudos to the Columbia University students who have been working so diligently with us. And just a little quick background, we have had several community engagement meetings. We met in July last year, or last semester. We were blessed with a cohort of Columbia University students that helped community to put together a comprehensive communications plan. And that plan is designed to bring and to connect the three neighborhoods. When MCUP first came met and was introduced to the community, we were under the impression that it was only the McLeod community, and the McLeod community was the whole thing. So the cohort of students that we had last semester, when they came and they did a site visit also, and we did a tour of the impact area, the flooding area, the Pearl River. Abby took us on an awesome tour. And so what we initially had the idea to do was to develop what's called a vulnerability study and assessment to see where the potential threats of flooding and to identify where the flooding is coming from and what we can do in order to make communities more adaptable and more resilient. Whether folks understand it or not, the flooding is really being driven by climate change, and climate change is really, really real. And that's where MCUP's work is centered. We're centered in climate change, environmental justice, environmental and social justice, and working with our communities so that they will be more adaptable, more resilient, thriving, and sustainable. So we were thinking, well, let's put together, work with students to put together a sustainability plan. Well, once we got in, we were already inside of the semester, and we knew that we would not have time to do this full sustainability plan, which is pretty complex. So we, Tracy Miller, Tracy is who introduced me and connected me to the McLeod community. And like I said, we presented to them the Neighborhood Association, I believe it was last year in October. In fact, it was October the 11th. And we were under the impression that it was only one community. One of my colleagues, Michael Burns, who lives in Atlanta, and he runs this organization, C2P2. And Michael is who connected us to the Columbia University students. He works with universities to pair students with community in order to help them to do research projects, to look at solutions, and what the best options are for the issues that they are addressing and challenging. So I got a call from Michael. This is after we had met with the McLeod community, and he said, hey, Ramona, I just signed on to partner with Columbia University Sustainability, School of Climate and Sustainability. I know that where you are and the work that you all do, they had, our first project was in Duck Hill, Mississippi, and we'll talk about that later. And so he said, can you use some students? Well, I just met with the folks in McLeod, and that's where, at that meeting on October the 11th, is where I heard about the One Lake Plan. Prior to that, I don't know if you all know Mr. Frank Figures. We had lunch one day, and Brother Figures was telling me about the Two Lake Plan. Well, I did not know that the One Lake Plan was also the Two Lake Plan. But I heard about the One Lake Plan from the McLeod Neighborhood Association president, who is also named Ramona Williams. And I started asking her questions at the meeting. I said, well, do you have a copy of this One Lake Plan? And she didn't have a copy of it. She said it's out there. And so when she said it's out there, I knew she was referring to it was out on the internet somewhere. So we work with scientists and with engineers. And I contacted the scientists that worked with us on the Duck Hill project. And we partnered with an organization, a national organization called EcoAdapt. I may be familiar with EcoAdapt. EcoAdapt, and Alex Score, she worked with us to develop the sustainability plan for the Duck Hill community in Montgomery County. And I called her, I said, there's something called the One Lake Plan. I don't know anything about it, but it's dealing with flooding. And from the community, the meeting that I had with the Neighborhood Association, the people really, I could gather that the people have not been meaningfully, and the key word here is meaningfully engaged in this plan and don't really know what's going on with it. So she did some research, and she sent me over the DIS, and the DIS stands for the Draft Environmental Impact Statement. And she said, this is something that I found from 2018. And I started reading it. It was pretty high text, so I really wasn't for sure what was being said and what was going on. And I immediately knew that I was going to need to have other folks involved in this. And that's how Juan reached out to Tracy, and Tracy introduced me to Juan, and we had several meetings and engagements. We talked with Abby, and we worked with the students to develop what we thought was, at that time, the Brookwood subdivision communications plan. And we formed a steering committee. Dion was on the steering committee, and that's when we learned that there were 3 separate neighborhoods, and then we learned about the 4th neighborhood, which is Parkway. And there were separate neighborhood associations, but folks kind of weren't talking to one another. So we said, well, we've got one issue that is impacting us all, and what can we do in order to bring these communities together? That's how we came up with the 3 communities, one common agenda that is now evolved into a collective. We introduced the communications plan to the broader community at New Jerusalem. And the reason why we weren't meeting at New Jerusalem today was because it was a conflict. From there, the introduction of the communications plan, we got busy and started working towards the implementation. So connected with colleagues at EPA Region 4, who plays a significant role in our work. And Jeannie Williamson is the director over a program called the CUP program. And what the CUP program is, it links communities to college students. So we were fortunate to get, one of the things that we wanted to do was, in the implementation of the communications plan, was to develop a website. And the students will be here in a little bit to talk about the website. And brought Juan on, brought Albert on, who's behind our IT guy, a multimedia guy, who works at Jackson State University in their IT department and has just been an incredible support for us through this process. So I'm not going to, today, as I said, we kicked off in July, had consensus from the community that they would like for us to continue on. We had a subsequent meeting last month on September the 16th, I believe. Yes. And we brought in a brother named Brother Omar, because the one-way plan is also, and probably will become a part of what's called the NEPA process. And Omar is an expert in NEPA. He is from Charleston, South Carolina, and they deal with a lot of flooding issues because they're right there on the coast. So he came in and just did remarkable training for us. And one of the things that he suggested that we do was to form a community action board, a community advisory board. And we have formed a community advisory board. So everybody on the community advisory board, raise your hand, please. And so we have been meeting regularly. We also have formed a communications working group, and the communications working group meets regularly. So we'll get more into the organizational part. But right now, I guess that's my progress report that I'm supposed to be doing. Just wanted to inform community that the work is moving, and it's moving rapidly. We are waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers to release their DIS, and Jill and Abby are going to talk more about that because they're the experts in that area. so you're going to learn a lot from them. But the first thing that we want to do is give a progress report and an update of the students in the phenomenal work that they have been doing. I would also like to recognize their professor and their director, Dr. Radley Horton, and he's going to say a few words after they do their presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcella. Marcella is the project lead.
Yes, thank you all again so much for having us. We've got a quick presentation that's really going to run through what we've been working on throughout the semester, and then how we're going to spend the rest of our semester to hopefully offer at the end some deliverables for you folks that are going to be helpful. I think I'm passing on to Sam first. Next slide.
All right, so yeah, I'll just start us off with some quick background. Yeah, one more slide, please. So we have been kind of looking into the environmental justice landscape in Jackson and in Mississippi, and basically what we found is that the Department of Justice, the EPA, and the state are most concerned with water quality and environmental justice right now, but and there was $150 million released by the EPA for this recently. But we know that water quality and flooding are connected. We know that you all have lots of other environmental justice concerns. And so what we're kind of trying to do is, as best we can, fill in the gaps that the state and the city might be missing a little bit. So yeah, and I'm going to hand it over to Marcella again just to talk about Justice 40 a little bit.
One more slide, please. So Justice 40 is a recent initiative by President Biden, authorized in 2021, that basically has the goal of dedicating 40% of federal investments to quote-unquote disadvantaged communities. So the Infrastructure and Investment in Jobs Act is considered covered by Justice 40. That's where most of the money for One Lake is coming from at this point. This also created this climate and economic justice screening tool, which is online. That's a mapping tool, and it will highlight different communities and a lot of different risk factors. But really the one that applies here is disproportionate environmental stress or burden and high cumulative impacts. That's what these communities really are going to apply under. And you'll see if you visit that tool that all the communities that are here today are ranked at the 90th percentile across the nation in communities that are going to have a high building hazard rate, so loss of buildings as well as loss of population because of environmental hazards. One more slide, please.
Okay, so we're also working on a survey, and we hope to keep the questions relatively general. We will not be administering it, Actioncommunity certainly will. The objective of the survey is to really focus on quality of life in terms of health impacts, mental health within all three communities. We also really hope that it will impact future policy and certainly guide the final outcome of the One Lake Plan. The participants will be households, will be door to door, and we're hoping to as of yesterday, actually, we were discussing doing every door within all three communities, which would be amazing. And then, yeah, so then the problems will be more on the next slide, please. Yeah, so demographics, door to door. We're really interested in kind of determining the levels of property damage. So it seems, my understanding right now is that there's no thorough database of who has what kind of damage in what home. So those kinds of things are definitely on top of the priority list, determining what the sort of the economic impacts of your property damages, health and psychological impacts, things like mold in your home that has been caused from incoming water that could potentially, for pre-existing respiratory diseases like asthma and things like that, what kinds of health impacts are being caused from the flooding.
And then the prevalence of flood insurance specifically are big question marks that we would like to better understand within these two communities in terms of, have you been able to file a claim? Were you successful in getting any kinds of money from that claim? Do you even have access to this? Do you understand your insurance? So that would, those are some important things. We had a resident last week tell us that there's been a lot of foul smell. So it's not just the big floods that have been an issue apparently, but there's also been a lot of smaller, heavier rains that cause backup for some people. And then community preparedness and understanding resources. So things like, where do you get sandbags? What are the community resources that we have access to, and kind of mapping out, like being able to add to some of these factors, some of these maps would be really useful. So, yeah, those are different things that the survey will work on.
Okay. Next slide, please. And one more. Okay. Okay, so this is another proposed deliverable. This is a more recent idea that we've had as a group, and this has been motivated by, I guess, over the semester as we get to know the issues more and more. We are getting a better understanding of how complex it is and all of the different interactions between different issues. We were introduced really to this problem through the One Lake Plan. And then we said, okay, but the One Lake Plan is in response to the flooding. And then from the flooding, there are, numerous different causes. There's climate change, as Mr. Mona said, but it's also the way the water interacts with the infrastructure. And then on the effect side, as Andrew spoke about, there's public health, there's economic burdens. And so the way that the environmental, economic, and social components all come together it's really hard and complex. And so we have the idea of building a problem tree. This comes from this logical framework for development projects. It's used by USAID, Engineers Without Borders, a lot of big development organizations use this in their project development process. And so, I guess we can go to the next slide to see an example. So this is an example of a problem tree. We did not make this for you guys. We wanted to show you what one might look like. This is an example of a city that was having a lot of public bus accidents. And so it breaks down trying to identify the relationships between causes and effects. And the point of this is, the point of this is to be able to locate the causes and effects, find the root problems to really hone in and focus action. Once you identify the cause and identify the chains through which all the effects take place, you can have some really powerful impacts. So this is why we wanted to make a problem tree for our group, and I will pass it to you to talk about why it might be useful.
Yeah, so next slide. Good. So we're hoping this can not only be something that we do, but that could be kind of a collaborative effort with you guys. So already in this meeting, the transformers have been brought up by you, sir, and then also potholes and a number of other issues that I don't even think we were aware of coming in here. And so we're hoping that not only can this problem tree help us map out the issues for our knowledge, but help all of you understand how these issues are actually related to each other. So whether it's a pattern of city neglect, not taking care of the roads, not maintaining the drains and stuff, we're hoping that this framework can be something we all add to together to get a better picture of all the problems everyone's facing in each individual community. And then out of that, once we can kind of understand all the problems and how they're related, then we can make sure that whether it's alternative to the One Lake Plan or whatever it might be, we can make sure that that solution is holistic and addresses all those issues. So we don't want a plan coming in that's disproportionately benefiting certain areas or different things. We want it to really be addressing the problems that each of you are dealing with. And so we think this is a good way to lay it out, understand it, and work together to create a solution.
We've got one more slides. So the last thing we're going to talk about today, do you have Wi-Fi enough to click on that link? Let's go through a little bit. We're going to use a story map, which is a multimedia narrative tool powered by ArcGIS, which is a geographic mapping system online. You see these, for example, in the New York Times does them, but they're basically scrollable with some data and some maps. And so the way we idealize this for your community is kind of a broad view of flood management and water quality advocacy in Jackson, and then a lead up to how that relates to the One Lake Plan. So laying out kind of a historic view of what's been going on throughout these communities over the years. Sorry about that. As well as what the opportunities are for the future. So these slides and this link will be made available to you all through email or whatever channels may be available. So you can scroll through this. This is just an example one that we didn't produce but was produced online about coastal flooding. So there is some overlap between problems that you all are facing. But yeah, if you want to just like scroll a little bit in this. And you don't have to really worry about what it says, but just as an idea of what we're going to make to be produced again.
I like the way that they have they got how many flood days.
Mm-hmm.
Remember something you told me to go back to the other thing?
Yeah, you can.
All right, I was just looking at all the pictures. Y'all, this is reverse, so kudos to Albert for working this backwards right here.
Right.
And I think we've just got one last slide. Yeah, that's kind of what I've said before, but this is an opportunity really to inform more local stakeholders. So as a tool to, as you all bring this information from these kind of meetings out back to people who may not be here, as well as to catch up current and future community partners like us. And then finally to maybe bring larger attention to Jackson water issues, because it seems like nobody's talked about it, and they really should be. That brings us to the end of ours. We're happy to take questions at the end today, but we'll hand it back off to Ms. Ramona, I think.
So do we have any questions for the team, or do we want to hold off? Any questions?
I'd rather ask now, because probably the more information we get, you think your thought process will change.
Early on in your communication, you said that dollars may have been targeted for Jackson water, but it's been more so focused on the getting good water versus the prices that the rain and the flooding causes. But those dollars would have been targeted for all of the water issues, not just, the water issues that have been made prevalent. Is that what you're saying?
So that 150 million that's been authorized was basically only for water quality in Jackson. I know that there's been more money authorized for some kind of flood mitigation measures, or like, potentially the One Lake Plan or something like that. But basically what we were saying is that in terms of environmental justice, it's just water quality that the state is focusing on for the most part. And so the money is also being funneled into separate things, even if they're connected, like flooding water.
And that's one of the things that we are looking at. How are those funds actually being allocated? If they're being allocated in an equitable and allocated in an equitable and beneficial way, because there is an unprecedented amount of money that is coming into the city of Jackson, but that's out here as a whole, as a part of the Biden-Harris administration, as a part of their bipartisan infrastructure bill, and also under IRA. The IRA stands for the Inflation Reduction Act, and then there's just other resources that are out here. ARPA funds, that COVID money, that money could have been used in a more beneficial way than the way and the manner in which the state allocated it. Another issue is what's called the SRF, the State Revolving Fund. Are those state revolving funds, are the policies, because we have to look at the policies, are the policies set in a way that the most disadvantaged communities have the capacity in order to access those funds? We're working with an organization, it's called EPIC, the Environmental Policy and Innovation Center, and we're looking at the water utilities, the municipal and independent water utilities up in the Delta. We wanted to focus more on the smaller water utilities. Jackson has a whole lot of issues. We didn't want to dive into that. But one of the things that we realized and that we found out that the reason why these disadvantaged utilities were not able to access this money was the way that MDEQ, the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, the way that they actually wrote and designed the policy. So the way that they wrote the policy was that in order to access the SRF fund, then there's a matching dollar requirement, which could be a waiver, right? But there's a matching dollar requirement, and the stipulation that they put on those matching funds was that they had to be COVID dollars. But when those COVID dollars were allocated and issued, most of these small communities have already allocated and spent their money. So that right there eliminated them, and they could not use any other matching dollars, any other funds in order for the match. So that eliminated those communities. So we have to look at how money is being used. Is it being used in a fair and equitable way? Why is it that in the city of Jackson, when you come off of 20 from Pearl, the roads are beautiful. But as soon as you hit Jackson, they crumble. That's inequity. Those are environmental justice. So I think it's very important that we see that, yes, that money came in, it was for water quality, but we need to also lift our voices so that the issues that communities see are priority. That those dollars will also, that the city will also advocate to bring those kind of resources into our city. The reason why the water issue got so much attention was because we didn't have water, right? We didn't have clean water. However, what was overshadowed was what caused this water treatment system that was already antiquated and probably should have been replaced decades ago, was the flooding, right? Okay, it was the flooding. So, but that was overshadowed because the greater problem became the drinking water and access to drinking water, and that's why that issue received the funding, because you gotta have clean water. You just gotta have clean water. So I would like to say thank you to the students. They've been absolutely fabulous. Can we give them an applause? Thank you for your work. We still have more work to do. This is just a draft. And I'm going to turn it over to Juan.
As you turn it over to Juan, is there anywhere online we can access what's going on as you guys are making progress, or
yes, we're going to talk about that.
Something somewhere where we can get live action information as to what's going on?
You're getting ready to see that right now. Other students, is there anything?
Hello, everybody. I'm juggling a couple of tasks right now, so please forgive me. This is the 3C1A website, and we have some videos for the students that are doing some introductions to the different parts of the site. So what I'm going to attempt to do is play these videos for you.
And before you play, let me just make a note here. MCUP is working with 6 students from Georgia State University in Atlanta. Thank you. So MCUP is working with 6 students from Georgia State University in Atlanta, and it's 2 groups of 3 students each. 3 of the students are making a website for our 3C1CA collective, and that's what you're about to see. One of the purposes of this website is, as the gentleman in the back asked, for us to post updates. So, for example, if Albert could scroll down a little bit, we're starting to flex that update muscle just by doing something as simple as uploading the fact that we have this meeting going on. This is something that we will need community participation on. We can't, as an organization, handle the capacity of doing everything. And so we also have a communications working group that if you're interested in helping me, helping Ramona get messages out, I do things like go to board meetings where people talk about flood control that affect your communities. I can write about it and post it, but I think it's more meaningful if it's coming from the community, even if it's, if it's something that we talk about jointly, but it can't just be all me. Anyway, Georgia State University students are working with us through a program called CUP, which stands for Colleges and Underserved Communities Partnership Program. It's sponsored by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it provides communities that are neglected in some ways. It provides these communities with free resources by linking them with students with technical skills. And so for us, these are students who have made a website with support from Albert, and they have made a video description of their website that Albert's going to play. What Albert's showing right now is the event page for this event on the website. But now let's see what the students have to say about it.
While he's doing that, the tiny URL we used on the sheet to look for this meeting, will it be linked to all those websites you guys are working on as well? Or is it part of it already?
The Facebook page needs to be linked to this, and that's something that I need to do. But this website is 3 communities, 1 common agenda, 3C1CA. The initials, 3C1CA.com. It'll take you there. If you're on your phone, for example, you can try it out now. It is live. It is working. The students have time in the semester left, and one thing that we are hoping to get from you is perhaps some feedback. If there's anything that you think should be added, removed, even just stylized things like, hey, this doesn't make sense, let us know. That's part of the website development process, and for companies, and it's going to be the website development process for us.
This is the most cost-effective and the platform which we had the most experience with. This website was created as a communication and information platform for the 3 neighborhoods of Kenton Club, Colonial Heights, and McLeod. Welcome to the 3 Communities, 1 Common Agenda website, or 3C1CA.com. We We designed this website with the help of WordPress. After examining 2 other website development platforms, we decided that WordPress is the most cost-effective and the platform which we had the most experience with. This website was created as a communication and information platform for the 3 neighborhoods of Kenton Club, Colonial Heights, and McLeod. In 3c1ca.com, your web browser will take you to this landing page. This homepage includes an overview of the 3 communities, a call to action button to connect visitors to the Contact Us page, an overview of upcoming and past meetings, and buttons to quickly access important pages of the website. The header and footer are the same for each page. The header includes the logo of 3C1CA, a link to get back to the home page no matter what page of the website you are on, and the menu to reach all pages of the website. The footer includes a functional search bar where you can search for specific topics within the website. Additionally, there are links to 3C1CA social media platforms. Next, we will be viewing the About and Issues page.
Excuse the order.
Under the Resource tab in the menu, you will find the newsletter page.
Okay, everybody. I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of bandwidth issues as far as the network. I'm using the hotspot and trying to do too many things at one time. So please feel free to visit the site, give us your input on what you think we could improve upon. It's open and available for you to look at now. And just want to apologize for network stuff. So. For right now, are there any questions about its, its website?
The website address?
Yes, sir. The website address is 3c1ca.com. So 3c1ca.com.
And please do visit the website. We've got the framework in place, right, that we need to And no one can tell the story about a community better than the people who have lived in that community and who are invested in those communities. No, like the Miss Johnson. You know, all of our communities have a Miss Johnson, right? And so Miss Johnson knows all of the history of the community. One thing that we talked about yesterday during our working group with the students was to capture those oral histories of our communities so that we would be able to pass the stories down from one generation to the next generation. My parents were a part of the Great Migration. You know, we grew up, they settled in that area around Jackson State. And my family has been in that community for the last 150 years. We just lost my aunt, Aunt Bessie. She was 102 years old. And she just had so much wisdom, so much knowledge. I learned so much about who I am. And I've learned a lot about who I am since I've been living in Jackson and living in Mississippi. So the stories are very, very important. I know about stamps because I grew up hearing about the hamburgers, right? So that's one of the things that we want to do when we create the storyboard. Tell the stories of the community. We don't just want to show the problems in the community, like the flooding. We all know that there's a flooding, but we have so many other wonderful stories that we need to share with the world about who we are. So when people come to visit Jackson, they're going to want to say, let's go to the McLeod, let's go to the Canton Club, let's go to the Parkway, let's go to that area, and let's see and just visit and touch the ancestry of our community. So, do we want to take a quick break, or do we want to keep it moving since we got still a lot to cover and we have a guest? Jill is going to really dive into the weeds of the One Lake Plan from the perspective of the 2018 DS, because that's what we have. Am I correct, Jill? That's what we have. That's all we have to go on right now. But we're going to be able to, we need an understanding of the 2018 so that when they drop this new one at any day, whenever they're going to, we're expecting it to come out any day. When they drop it, we'll be able to do that comparison and contrast, and we'll have a better understanding of what we are going to be looking at in that's what's before us. So I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Or I could just, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Hi, yeah, so yeah, thanks for the chance just to say a couple words. Yeah, so I'm a professor at Columbia in this climate school. Oh yeah, sorry. In this climate school that started a couple years ago, and I teach in the Sustainable Development Department. So yeah, basically this is my third time down to Jackson in the last 6 months or so. I'm just so appreciative of the chance to interact with all of you. One thing we always try to do at the university is to not have our research just be totally theoretical. Our research will be better and certainly more impactful if we can engage and pick up all the local knowledge, all the perspectives. So as the students conveyed, this is all about partnership. It's all about building a long-term relationship. And basically you telling us what we can do to support your goals, your work. As a small group of really bright and motivated undergraduates, but my hope is that more broadly across Columbia, we can find partnerships with engineering schools that we have, for example, some of the top environmental lawyers in the country. Basically, just to the extent that it's helpful to help articulate some of these challenges, but also work with you to build towards solutions. So I'm just really thankful of everyone's time and sort of willingness and appreciation, willingness to take time to talk to us and teach us about these challenges. And we're really excited to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. Guys, so we're going to let Jill go, but in a second, why don't we take an 8-minute break?
It's 11:02. Let's reconvene at 11:10 so because we can sit down for a while. Or is that too long of a break? I see a lot of people just.
Could we keep it moving and just move in and out as we?
All right, let's go then. All right, I'm down.
Just a suggestion.
If anyone, all right, I just want to make sure everyone has plenty of space to go to the bathroom, get water, whatever. But if we're all good, we're all good. So, Jill, I have a bio of you, and let me pull that out so I can actually introduce you. All right, y'all. If you look at the second page of your packet, we have a bio of Jill. But let's keep things moving. So, Jill, here you go.
Thank you, Juan. And again, good morning, everyone. Compliments to all of you for taking time out of your very full schedule on a Saturday morning to be here, to really commit to your community, to be a voice of change in your community. For my part, I've been in the Deep South for the last 24 years, working with communities of all political stripes, income levels, colors, religion, really trying to help empower voices and educate voices and making positive change that also is good for the environment. Because in my heart, I love nature. And so I've actually lived in the metro area for the last 12 years, have been working on this particular issue for too many years to count, and my great partners, Abby, who's with Pearl River Keeper, and Louis Miller, who is with the Sierra Club, have really been great advocates, and I'm so glad that they're here today because they can help chime in. But the piece I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about this morning were truly the many serious threats that this One Lake plan, based on the 2018 version, poses to communities, particularly vulnerable communities, neighborhoods like yours, as well as the Pearl River and its wildlife. So next slide, please. So just as a way of, next slide, please, Albert.
I got you.
Next slide
I got you.
actually talks about Audubon. So just as quick orientation, Audubon Delta, that I'm a part of, includes Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And we're part of National Audubon Society, which is one of the largest, oldest conservation organizations in the country. We celebrate nature through birds. So right now, many of the birds that we're seeing in our yards and our day-to-day travels are actually heading south to Central and South America. So thousands of miles, it really blows my mind. But we as an organization are committed to what's good for birds is good for people. And so we do that through education and hands-on conservation and advocacy. And here in Mississippi, we have over 9,500 members. We also have 2 nature centers, one in the northern part of the state and one on the coast. So we're also property owners in the state. Next slide, please. So the Pearl River is truly an amazing resource that we have here in Jackson. It begins up in near Philadelphia, and it flows nearly 500 miles, connecting communities and the outdoors, wildlife, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. It's actually the 4th largest input of fresh water to the Gulf of Mexico. So it's super critical to the health and productivity of the whole Gulf Coast, as well as our economy. This is actually one of the most intact rivers in the southeast part of the United States. Next slide, please. So, 1979, where this kind of all began, was the historic Easter flood that was devastating. And it was a flood of record. It was a 200-year event. What happened after that was a federal report by the Government Accounting Office to kind of look at what transpired. And what they found was that the flood event was actually made worse by human errors, as well as development in the floodplain. Okay? So people are being put in places where they're more vulnerable, right? Where that report found was there was a real lack of coordination between the local, state, and federal agencies. They weren't coordinating, they weren't talking to one another. There was not even fortifying, sandbagging of the lowest parts of the levee system, so water was just moving around the levee. There was actually really poor data collection during the whole event, so how much rain was falling, how high was the river rising. And I think one of the most damning pieces of evidence found in this report was that there was much of the flooding in the city of Jackson caused by an illegal 66-inch sewer pipe that the city city had built through the levee that introduced a lot of the floodwater right to downtown. And a few years later, the Fish and Wildlife Service, which is our federal fish and wildlife agency, found that really it was a lot of development in the floodplain and the floodway that contributed to what happened. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about the One Lake Plan, it's actually part of the long line of flood planning that has been done since the '79 flood. There were 5 major flood control plans. After the '79 flood, the Army Corps of Engineers, another federal agency, was put in charge of this whole flood planning process. And it began in 1984 with the Chaco dry dam that Louis mentioned. There were a number of other levee plans. All, what resulted in 1996 was an idea introduced by a local real estate developer. His name is John McGowan, who said, "I've got a great idea. Let's put some dam and create some lake or lakes up in Jackson under the very public, well-publicized goal of creating new developable waterfront real estate under the guise of flood control." And so what happened, none of those flood plans have happened because of public concern, environmental concerns, lack of public funding from the local level. I know Albert's kind of helping move through my slides, so sorry about that. Albert, if you could just step back on that one slide just to kind of give a general schematic. So this One Lake Plan that we're talking about, and this is kind of the 2018 version, you can see, I'm just going to point on the map because I don't have a pointer, but this is the Ross Barnett Reservoir. So it's going to start this area in the pink about 10 miles or so south of the Ross Barnett Reservoir. And if you click, so I know your communities are right around the words northeast Jackson. So this is an old map, forgive me. Next slide, please, Albert. So this is kind of the schematic from the 2018 plan. And what's really important is, to step back in 2008, the Army Corps of Engineers that was involved in flood planning, working with the local levee board, which is called as well the Rankin-Hines Drainage and Flood Control District. So I'm calling them levee board today. The levee board wouldn't look at anything but a lake plan. And the Corps of Engineers said, that's not good. So they actually walked away from the levee board in 2008. Fast forward, the levee board has spent a lot of public money to study a lake plan. There have also been some rehashing, and the Corps is now back in the driver's seat. So we all know a lot of political pressure, people change over time, and so that's why we're now still dealing with this, what's called the One Lake Plan, and they're trying to change the name of it now. But in 2018, what was proposed on paper was to dig and widen 10 miles of the Pearl River, so you can see all that area in the blue, digging all that river bottom up, taking all that fill material, and then putting it in the areas with the orange. Okay, so we're actually raising the land so that we have now more developable waterfront real estate, putting a low head dam at the base. So at the northern end, we're looking at just above Lakeland Drive, and then the southern end, 10 miles south, would be just below I-20. And so creating this almost 2,000-acre lake that would destroy habitat that helps keep our community protected from flooding. Most of the habitat that would be destroyed would be wetland habitat. And then what do these folks want to do? They want to actually put more people and property in harm's way by encouraging new development in those areas in the orange. And the Fish and Wildlife Service has announced that One Lake is the most environmentally damaging plan. So not only will One Lake actually make more people more vulnerable, it's not good for wildlife either. Next slide, please. So what One Lake is going to do is make things worse for frontline communities and the metro community of Jackson at large, as well as downstream communities too. One way it's going to do this is by actually worsening many of the public health and safety risks that are already struggling to be dealt with in this Jackson. So in 2012, the city of Jackson was entering into a federal consent decree with the Environmental Protection Agency, the federal agency, and the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality because of all of the polluted sewage that was running out of their sewer plants, turning places like this creek here in Jackson green. And what One Lake would actually do is make this problem worse. In 2019, the state of Mississippi said, this water quality in the river is so bad from all that sewage, we can't let people touch it. So there was no swimming, fishing, wading in the river. And it's still that way today. So our children, our communities can't use the river. What One Lake would do is actually put a dam and a 2,000-acre, basically septic pond, sewage lagoon, in our backyard. And that's not good for us either. One other serious public health concern is the fact that all of that dredging, that digging up of the river, would disturb 8 known hazardous toxic waste sites in and around the footprint of the project. There's no plan to protect public health. In 2018, they only set aside $8 million to develop any kind of mitigation plan. And these are sites that have creosote, they've got heavy metals, they've got a lot of toxins that are really bad for public health. And digging all that up is only going to put it in the air and put it in the water and move it around the soil. We don't want that. There also was a study in 2018 that came out from the Mississippi Department of Transportation that said all of that digging of the river is going to result in needing catastrophic failure of 7 of our bridges. These are like major bridges in the Jackson area, as well as 2 other bridges that we're going to have to get replaced. None of that cost has been built into this project. And they said it's going to be at least $110 million, which we know in today's date it's much bigger than that. And then, of course, there's a lot of missing costs too. And who's going to pay for all of those missing costs, like $110+ million for the bridge repair and cleaning up all of these toxic waste sites? Next slide, please. So, drinking water. Another serious concern associated with the One Lake plant. The Fuel water treatment plant is one of the 2 facilities that service the Jackson community that actually worked during the recent drinking water crisis. So providing 30% of the city's supply, but One Lake, because of all that digging, would change the water quality, would make the water quality worse, and this facility would actually have to be temporarily closed for 3 to 4 years during the construction of One Lake. And the city's going to have to find a temporary water supply and the funding to provide water to 30% of the city. And so One Lake is only going to make the situation worse for Metro Jackson. And One Lake would not have prevented the collapse of Jackson's main water treatment plant. So there's a lot of misinformation that had been going around last fall and since then. That, One Lake has been touted as the answer, the silver bullet, the panacea, and it's only going to make this situation worse for us. Next slide, please. It's also going to unfortunately make all of the flooding, especially the rain-induced flooding and the 8 tributaries that flow through Jackson proper, worse. And it's going to do that in part by permanently elevating, so having a lake that's now a permanent elevated water supply, and backing that water up into the creeks, which is going to make flooding worse when it rains. So we have all this water coming down, falling in our neighborhoods, draining into creeks that already can't handle the water. And One Lake is only going to make that situation worse by pushing water back up into our creeks. And this is a map that was created, Abby created this map from the EPA EJ screen of the city of Jackson's wards 3 and 5 to demonstrate that it's the most vulnerable folks in the Metro Jackson that are going to pay. This is just, of course, one part of the community, but this was to express visually how, predominant Black citizens are going to be impacted. So this is a slide again of a rain-induced flood events in 2019 in Lynch Creek that trapped 1,700 students between Jim Hill High School and the elementary school. And this unfortunately happens frequently. We see this, you know, in the nightly news, regular occurrence. And one lake is going to actually make this worse. It's not going to solve this problem. So we, all of us, need to figure out what those solutions are. But it's not this one lake plan. Next slide, please. So, also, you know, environmental and economic concerns regarding, especially all of those wetlands that serve as a natural sponge here in Jackson, almost 2,500 acres of them that help provide natural flood protection for our community at large, would be destroyed by the footprint of the project. There's also a lot of concern about all of the downstream communities and the wildlife and the resources that exist 200 miles below that dam, flowing all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So lots of wildlife habitat. We're talking at least 300 different species of birds and wildlife and fish. Audubon actually did research that shows that where the footprint of the lake would be, south all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, that part of the Pearl River supports over 32 million birds annually. So we wanted to make sure that we had the science to show the importance of the ecology of this special river. We're also concerned about how changing the flow, so reducing the downstream flow of the water by having that 2,000-acre lake would change the sediment, would change the water quality downstream, so that it could imperil over 100,000 acres of important public and private conservation lands, places where people go to enjoy the outdoors and hunt and fish, as well as seafood and tourism, which depends on a healthy river in order to catch get oysters and fish and take people out to enjoy nature. There are also, below the dam, there are over 100 discharge permits, so pipes that have a permit from the state government to release mainly effluent and other materials. And they require a certain amount of flow in the river in order to keep the river and all the downstream communities healthy. And so changing the flow of the river here in Jackson impacts all of those discharge permits and those communities that are south of us. Next slide, please. So another big question is who's going to pay for this project? So as you can see, over the years, it's mostly been other people's money, right? It's been the taxpayers. It's been the Mississippi taxpayers. It's been people in Jackson. It's been federal taxpayers paying to try and advance this project. And one of the most concerning things in 2017 was there was a law that was passed here at the Mississippi legislature that gives the levy boards, all levy boards, but we know that this was specifically created for the levy board here, to have the authority to raise property taxes on anyone that they think are directly or indirectly benefited by a project like One Lake. So it's all about passing the buck on who's going to pay for this project. And we're talking about a project that's going to require a 35% local cost share, which is like at least $120+ million, plus the annual maintenance and operation costs, all for private developers to get richer. And I've worked with communities all across the Deep South, and it's all about rich people getting richer in these situations. Next slide.
Can I ask a question? Who is going to own that levy? Is it going to be a federal levy?
It would be the levy board.
It would be the levy board. So the levy board to pay for the maintenance, because I participated in the Army, in the Corps and FEMA, they did a levy safety, a levy safety training. And so I was invited to participate in it, and that's when I learned that some levies are paid for by the federal government, and then some levies are owned, so it's all about the ownership of the levee that determines the quality of the maintenance of those levees.
Yeah, and
which is the safety.
there's some serious, exactly, there's some serious, public safety issues associated with making levees higher, having levees in general, also putting this large dam. All of that has certain requirements on how things are supposed to be constructed, how they're supposed to be maintained, and there's a lot of questions about who's going to be responsible, but certainly the levee board, and likely they have some arrangement with the Army Corps of Engineers. But I've lived in New Orleans for many years and went through Hurricane Katrina firsthand, and many storms down there, and I think I would be hard pressed to find somebody who had kind words to say about the local levee board and the Army Corps of Engineers, especially after what happened with Hurricane Katrina, and they're still struggling with a lot of that. So forgive me for the side note, but so all of these serious threats, all these serious concerns have resulted in broad opposition to the One Lake Plan, and this is coming from all ends of the political spectrum. We've had Congressman Benny Thompson raise concerns publicly over the 2018 plan, all the way to the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise from Louisiana, to faith leaders, to conservation organizations, to chambers of commerce, to state and federal agencies as well. And downstream, so the 200 miles that flow below that dam, there have been over 15 resolutions passed by communities and counties, both in Mississippi and Louisiana, opposing the One Lake Plan outright. So the point is, we are not alone in our concerns about this project. Next slide, please. So, sorry for all of the acronyms. I learned a new one, 31CA. I don't know. but this is to reiterate that since the 2018 levee board proposal of One Lake, the Army Corps of Engineers had to do some federal research of its own. And so they had some independent technical reviewers and internal technical reviews that all reinforced the major problems that I shared with you about public health, environmental health, the economy. All of those problems, many of those problems cannot be corrected. Okay, and this includes the toxic contamination of disturbing those 8 sites that we're aware of, the billions of gallons of sewage that we're already having the river struggle with, the water crisis of finding a temporary water supply for several years while this project is constructed for 30% of the city of Jackson, the tributary flooding that will actually be made worse by One Lake, the 9 major bridges that are going to have to be replaced, and then of course all of the hidden costs, all of the unknown costs, and the question of who's going to pay for this. Not just from dollars out of our pocket, but the frontline communities like yourselves who are going to have to pay for the safety issues, who are going to have to pay for the public health concerns. And the fact that there's environmental injustice with continued flooding. That just isn't right. Next slide, please. So, to again recap, other major problems that these federal reviews also found reinforced exactly what organizations like Pearl River Keeper and Sierra Club and Audubon and others raised in 2018 was that destroying these thousands of acres of habitat that naturally help protect our communities by acting as a sponge to absorb some of those rain-induced flood events and such, it's unacceptable. We also heard from one of the technical reviewers that the project is not going to reduce flood risk. They said that the One Lake will not create any additional capacity to store flood water, and it's not going to help move that water faster through the Jackson metro area. The project proponents want to just say, hey, this is just a low-head dam. This is just a weir that we're putting in. But it's actually a lot larger than that. And that kicks in are regulatory concerns, safety concerns about how this dam is going to be constructed, how it's going to be maintained. And there's just barely any adequate modeling that's been done on water quality, on the public health concerns. And so all of these issues, these are serious issues that deserve concrete answers, not hopes and dreams, but concrete answers. Next slide, please.
Especially those contaminated sites. Because when they disturbed those, I went to a Superfund, we bought a major Superfund project in St. Louis. And those contaminated sites, I didn't know about the contaminated sites until Abby did, she presented, and that's where she raised the issue about the contaminated sites. And the first question that came to my mind was, well, why isn't EPA involved? Where are they?
So,
and that's the question that I've been asking.
So, right, EPA is one of the federal agencies that involved in whatever the Corps and the levee board come up with, whatever they're about to release here imminently that we expect. But the Fish and Wildlife Service also is the other agency that is going to be reviewing what comes out. The Fish and Wildlife Service has been very much opposed to One Lake. They said this in the 2018 version of the levee board plan. EPA in 2018 chose not to make any comment.
Well, they're going to make comments this time.
They're going to make comments this time, and we've been working with the regional office out of Atlanta to get the staff up to speed on the many concerns. So we've done this presentation as operating organizations to EPA, to downstream leaders, to people in Louisiana. We've really tried to help elevate the consciousness to make sure that everyone is aware and that they should have a seat at the table and a voice at the table. But up until, the levee board really, the people who want this project, the One Lake project, really don't want any of us to be at the table. Right? And that's not going to happen anymore, is it? So what Audubon and our partners have been really advocating for is real common sense, true, effective flood relief solutions for communities such as yours. And these are flood solutions that are used in all parts of the country. In fact, just the other day, there was the city of Canton putting together a flood plan. They got $23 million. I want to know how they got the $23 million from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to develop a flood plan that will create what all of you want, some flood solutions. Not 10 years from now, but within the next few years. And those, I'm sorry?
Canton up the road.
Canton, exactly, up the road. Bear Creek is what they've been dealing with flooding. And I want to know how we can help the community get that money. Because USDA, they have an office here in Jackson, and we need to meet with them and get some money so the neighborhoods can start figuring this out. Because this has been going on for way too long.
That water comes from there, comes into the Pearl River north, and comes into the reservoir, and it's right on top of us.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask. Just like you were pointing out the challenges with that decisions we make here will cause on those below us, how impacted will we be from the decisions that's made shortly hereafter of places just above us that flows into us? Isn't that an additional concern if we're not in unity? And how can we be in unity when the dollars are allocated to particular areas who only have their own house to be concerned about and not necessarily what happens beneath them?
Well, it's as you say, it's a bigger conversation, right? The water's got to go somewhere. And we need to make sure that what the city of Canton is talking about, which I think they're really going to be trying to help, they need to be helping hold more water up there, right? So that it doesn't doesn't get pushed faster downstream. To me, that's a conversation that needs to get opened up. That's an opportunity, right? And this is a great vehicle for helping identify what needs to happen and opening up that line of communication. Because what we do here, whatever we do here will affect neighbors in other parts of the city. So, you know, one of the things that kind of is identified as a flood solution, that when the reservoir was built in 1963, it was built for drinking water predominantly, not flood control. But since 1983, it's been relatively responsibly managed to help minimize, mitigate some of the flooding. Now, it's not like a silver bullet solution, but it's part of a tool. We need to make sure all of the tools are on the table and that they're funded, because we now have an administration that has federal programs that have more money behind them than we could ever hope to imagine. And we need to make sure that some of that money gets on the ground to the neighborhood, which is what I'm saying. Like, the city of Canton, like, how do they get their money? I want to, you know, we need to kind of learn some of that. But other pieces, and I know I need to wrap up because all of you need to get on to the rest of your weekend, is, you know, talking about nature-based solutions like doing more restoration of those wetlands, those habitats that help naturally absorb floodwaters, making improvements to the existing levee system, also making sure that you as homeowners have the funding to elevate your homes if you want, to do the flood proofing that you might want, to elevate the roads into your neighborhood. And I've seen in the newspaper people in certain parts of Jackson that, you know, are really tired of facing flooding and they want to be bought out. So voluntary buyouts where people get a check, so you get the money in hand for what your property is truly worth. You can move on with your life, hopefully find another place, you know, in the metro area. But also we have to get a hold of like this rampant development in harm's way, and that's, you know, our local leaders that have continued to allow that at the behest of developers. Next slide. I think this will be pretty much my last slide. So as Juan and the students mentioned, you know, there's imminently a document called a draft environmental impact statement that the Army Corps is supposed to be releasing any day now. They said before November 1st they were going to be releasing their draft study. And they got to that process very rushed because this time last year there was a serious water crisis in the city of Jackson, and there was so much political pressure from the powers that be that want One Lake that they convinced the Army Corps that One Lake was part of the solution and they needed to expedite their work. And so we're now seeing $221 million that was committed by the Army Corps of Engineers even before this public process began, which is like unheard of, that the Army Corps would say, we're going to put $221 million towards construction of a project that hasn't even gotten the review of all of us, EPA, etc. And so we know that likely what's to come out here in the next few days is based on the levee board's very flawed documentation with a lot of things missing. And so it's going to be all of us, and certainly Adley, Louie, myself, Juan, Ms. Ramona, digging into what will be hundreds of pages of information so that we can help you all understand what's being proposed. What came out a couple months ago, the Army Corps did what they call a scoping process, and what was jaw-dropping to me was that in that they proposed One Lake again. It's like, have you not heard all of the concerns that were lifted up in 2018? So it just reinforces in my mind that we don't need the Army Corps trying to pull a fast one on us, and that's why we all are here to make sure that doesn't happen. So with this rush process, the Corps thinks that they're going to possibly get this signed, sealed, and delivered with a red bow like in January. We've already slowed them down, folks. We actually made the Army Corps, they thought they were going to release this draft study September 1st, and it's now the end of October. And that's because of all of the engagement that all of us have been able to lift up. So raising voices in a constructive way, in a focused way, is really going to be critical moving forward. And we're going to make sure that everyone's informed, and that these great resources that students are putting together is going to help provide a vehicle for sharing that information. And then I think there might be one, I think it might end slide, yeah. So this was from the 2020 flood in the Canton club neighborhood. And this should not happen to any community. This shouldn't happen again. And so we need to keep an eye to making sure that these federal resources, this federal attention that's being given right now to One Lake and addressing flooding, is it going to prevent this from happening again? And I just say that Audubon and our partners are very committed, and this is not the last time that you're going to see us. And again, just hats off to you for being here on Saturday morning, because we're in it to win it. We're going to make sure we get these resources to all of you.
Okay. If I could ask, just so I'm clear, after your presentation, can you tell me who Audubon is and the nature of their investment into this particular information and how, they are concerned and our concerned?
Yeah. So Audubon is a conservation-based organization. We're well over 100 years old, but we've been in the Deep South working for decades and believe what's good for birds is good for people. So making sure that, children have places to play, nature, public health, all of that connects back to how we treat the environment around us that benefits birds and wildlife and it benefits the communities. And so we're interested in making sure that projects that are bad for public health, that aren't going to solve the flooding concerns, obviously, of this community, are done in a way that helps also benefit birds and wildlife, right? Because there's many co-benefits from doing the right thing. And so that's really why we want to step up and help the community get a good information, authentic, information that's based in science, that's not pulled from thin air, so that we can all work together to make sure that we're all being successful.
So being a conservative, conservationist organization, does that make you government? Does that make you private? Does that make you?
So we're a nonprofit organization, similar to Ms. Ramona's organization.
Okay.
We're a nonprofit-based organization.
Yeah, when it comes to the rainy season, okay, the reservoir is lower now, right? Okay, when it comes to rainy season and the water starts flowing, why can't they keep the reservoir down? The engineers can open them gates because they could flood Jackson tomorrow if they wanted to. But when it comes to the rainy season, why won't they just open the gate? I noticed the water come up so high on the river, then it go back down, and they know rain is coming again. Why don't they just keep it up near the top so they can get the water out of the reservoir? Then when you keep raining, they can hold more back. Because that's what happened the last time. They held more back than we didn't get the flood the very last, a couple years ago?
Yeah, 20
and why won't they do that?
Well, that's a great question. I think that it actually was happenstance in that the reservoir was trying to address some invasive species, some floating kind of grass, you could say. And so they had drawn the reservoir down just because to manage that issue. And so it was happenstance. But I know that the reservoir has management operations, and Abby, I know, has been more in touch with the spillway and the res management folks than I, but they have certain requirements of like how high they're going to keep the reservoir, and they do have rain gauges to monitor water flowing south into the reservoir and then below the reservoir.
Now they were talking about lowering that lower drive down there, lower it up to feel the strength of the reservoir, so then they can hold more water without the fear of the reservoir, getting in danger of breaking. But then, why don't they do that rather than to make the lake land down there, that second lake, and they can hold back more water, because the last time I think they said they held back more water, so we didn't get no flood. You know, the flood was very minimal. So,
And Ms. Jill, what he's saying is basically true, because that flood in 22, how the water was coming, as I was telling the student from Columbia, and all of a sudden that Sunday morning, it stopped just like it, and it receded and went back as quick as it came. And now that's the control management up there at the spillway, and I would go up there periodically, you know, because I used to fish up there just to check to see, and in between that time, we've had at least 3 or 4 times where it could have easily flooded us, but you know, but they was controlling it. And then this grass that they was trying to control, that hydrangea stuff, you know, they was actually spraying, because they was spraying on Crystal Lake and up around the reservoir and killing those weeds off. But then again, they felt that there was enough water in there to drown them. But you know, when that water drowns those plants out and it goes back down, they're coming right back, because they're, you know, their revegetation, you know, it's gonna come back again. So the thing about that reservoir, we discussed this here a while back at the Ag Museum. That reservoir is the key thing, because when it gets full, but you know, the people that, and I'm just gonna tell it like it is, the people that live there, those nice homes out there, they wanna have luxury to go out to their boats and get on their boats and go out on the lake, and that's their business. But at the same time, that water coming from the Yakinuki up in Philadelphia all the way down to us, because my grandparents lived there. And when it gets into the North Pearl River, it comes into the reservoir is at its capacity. They don't want those homes flooded. They let the water out on Jackson. It goes on down, and it affects further on down tributaries, and that's why the mayor in Monticello was complaining about the project up here. And if it comes into a proposal and it's a plan and it's done, it's gonna mess up stuff down there, and it goes all the way down, you know, to the Gulf Coast, and we see this. But the thing of it is, Roger Wicker stood right out there with us and told us that this is a doable plan, that he wasn't talking about the one lake. What plan he was talking about, it must be the one that they're coming up with now. But he never named the plan. He said, but this project that we're proposing is a doable plan. We have the monies for it. And then the president turned around and said, anything that Jackson needs in regards to their flooding, financial and resources, they're going to have it. And we're going to give it to them. Now, it goes all the way back also to our governor, that y'all's governor that y'all have now. He has a lot to do with this, and of course they're playing the political game, the politics, and who's still at risk? We are. The people that have been flooded, Canton Club, Colonial Heights, and McLeod, and it just needs to stop now. And there's a whole barrage of things in here, and I'm glad my brother right here was coming out, and my brother right here asking these pertinent questions, because this is what I was trying to get our community to do, to come together, to see what's going on. And you need to know these neighborhood association presidents that we have, they're not involved in these things, they can care less, because they're with ours, is particularly McLeod is with Ed Graham, and he's one of the persons that's telling people that, you know, my cup and other people are misinforming people, and we're not doing that. We're trying to make sure people know what's going on, and we don't sit up here at the last minute and then they unleash some kind of plan on us and we can't do anything about it. We need to know what we're fighting against. We need to know the stakeholders that are involved. We already know what their agenda is. So it talks about the management of the reservoir itself, then us being flooded and all these things. We've got to come together and wake up and see what's really going on. That's why it's so important to come to these meetings, so you'll know for yourself. And you know, won't be no speculations about, you know, he said, she said, they said, or what, you know for yourself. And if you have some input, some questions, and some concerns about this here, ask them why you are here and delve into them and do your own research and empower yourself so you'll know.
Well, one of the things that I learned from Andrew's presentation was that the reservoir was not created for flood management and containment, that it was created for recreation and for the folks who live on the reservoir in the $1 million homes and everything like that, so they'll have some place to park their boats. So it wasn't even created to manage border flood mitigation. So there's just, you know, it's just been a lot of bad stuff that has taken place, and unfortunately, our communities, as in so many instances, we're the ones that end up being the sacrificial lamb for all of this craziness that's going on. But to your point, Brother Thompson, about what the president said, when other people are your voice, right, they're going to sell their agenda. And from what we have gathered in this short period of time that we've been working on this project, the community has not been meaningfully engaged. And it's just not the three communities that we're focusing on, but even where you saw the tributaries, the creeks, and everything. My family lives over in the JSU community right there at Lynch Creek. And that creek is still in horrible condition. You know, we have got to hold the city of Jackson and the elected officials that are, I don't know, I have to question it. After the garbage situation, I just have to question their decision-making, period. But they got to be held accountable. Those creeks need to be cleaned up. There's just so much money out here. There's no reason for us not to be getting the resources that we need to make our communities healthy and to make them thriving. It's just not. So we need to write the president and let him know what the concerns of the community and the people are. And then give him some options, right, and some alternatives to this one-lake plan. Because the only ones he's listening to is Wicker. Well, Wicker's down on the coast, ain't he?
Statewide. Statewide.
Right, but he's the center, but he lives down on the coast, does he live on the coast?
I don't think so.
Right. Okay. So, you know,
I thought it was
the
Tupelo or something.
The lobbyist for the Hines Rankin Levy Board up until recently.
Who was the lobbyist?
His son-in-law.
Oh, shoot. There you got it right there. Nepotism is amazing.
I'll just tell y'all, after the '83 flood, Louis Miller with Sierra Club, I cut my teeth on the Chaco Dam, right? So, some institutional memory here of what happened. And after the '83 flood, the legislature is where the buck stops with a lot of this, like what you're talking about, the management of the water level in the reservoir. The reservoir is a state agency, Pearl River Water Valley Supply District. And after the '83 flood, a number of legislators from upstream communities that were threatened by the Chaco project said, hey, we need this reservoir pulled down from March date through the flooding season, rainy season. That legislation was overturned at some point, or it was amended to where it gave more discretion to the reservoir rather than having a, guarantee, so to speak, that the water would stay at that level until the threat of flooding from spring season rains was over. And, to me, the loss of having some sort of guarantee, even though the reservoir now has gauges upstream that they know what's coming into that watershed at least 3 days ahead of time, and we've seen some very good management out of them. But this last go-round was not. I mean, people knew that the rains were coming out of Texas well in advance, and those water levels were not dropped sufficiently to keep that from getting into the neighborhoods. And then you guys were faced with the last minute, where's the U-Hauls, and water, the alarms went off. So what I'm saying is the legislature can have a role in this. And I know that some of the Jackson delegation have tried to put more members on the reservoir from Hines County and the Jackson area, so there's some equal representation on there, and those bills have been killed. So, having said that, there's a lot of room for improvement on what goes on with the reservoir, and the legislature certainly has the ability to make that happen. So I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Some people to talk about.
That'll help solve that they really turn that water loose as they should.
So guys, we have a couple more minutes for questions if anyone else has a question for Joe.
Well, you know,
See, you never need a mic, but I'll give you a mic anyway.
okay.
As you guys talk, just other things come to mind, and this is the opportunity to speak on it. You know, we started out getting information about one lake, and then Audubon shared with us concerns pertaining to that. Even as we get information, I'm not real sure that I'm getting anything that says this is the solution that I want to support or pursue or try to be a part of. So is there anyone here with an idea that helps us as the residents to move forward versus, you know,
Well, it's really
going against what we have seen? Because we are getting information, and that's great.
Yeah, but see, the question that you're posing goes along with what they were talking about doing a survey. They're gonna need our help communicating with our community members to find out what the circumstances are for the individuals in the community so we can have a collective voice when we deal with our legislation. Now, when we talk about that, we've got to start at the local level and work our way forward also, while these other advocates are working on federal and state levels with the contacts and lobbyists that they have access to. So the main thing we've got to do is make sure we get the word out and help to get the information flowing so that we give them more to work with, while at the same time informing ourselves to mobilize our communities to stop having one person speak for all of us. We got to show up in numbers and get stuff done. That's why I'm glad for you. Because too many years passed when even our local community, they were wasting time in the meeting, and then people who were renters started coming in, and the agendas changed. Same thing with our local neighborhood email information. It became a, you know, garage sale, so I stopped tuning in. But now we've got to inform folk of where to get the right information so that we can start showing up at the meetings where folk do the voting and let them know we're not cool with what they're doing, but we all too busy and working. I'm starting with me. And I've showed up at places and there ain't nobody there. Because we as a community, we're so busy working, we're ill-informed and uninformed. So we've got to get these surveys together, get the information from the people, and those of us who care about what we own because we're not renters, we're going to have to speak up for ourselves.
Absolutely.
As a group.
Absolutely. And, you know, I really would like, on behalf of MCUP and our partners, right? Credibility is everything in this work that we do. And there's been some, you know, elected officials who have said some things not directly against us, but against this work that is taking place in the organizing work. We've had several community engagements. We're totally transparent. We're totally open, and we work to be honest. We have never said that the county is going to buy up nobody's property, that USD and that the Army Corps of Engineers is going to buy up anyone's property. We've never said that. One thing that we did do is we cited in the 2018 DEIS that's tucked away and hid in an appendix the possibility of a buyout. Is it not there?
It was one of the options.
One of the options.
One of the options was, in the 2018 draft study, was buying 3,000 structures. 3,000 structures. That's not going to solve the problem.
No.
Right? It's not going to solve the problem. It's pretty outlandish. And, you know, as this gentleman was mentioning, I didn't really get a chance to delve into some of the kind of common sense flood solutions that other communities have employed as close as Canton. That's the kind of conversation that we need to have.
Yes.
And I think that maybe reaching out to USDA, because they're the one that gave the $23 million, finding out city of Canton who's involved. You know, they hired an engineering company with the $23 million to work, to do community meetings, to get ideas from the community. And that, to me, is, you know, what we would want to see happen, to have all the voices given the chance to engage, be informed, engage. What are the options? You know, do you want to elevate or raise your home? Do you want to do some floodproofing? Do we need to do more restoring of the river? Like, what are the things that can help, not, you know, 20 years from now, but like now? And I think that's the challenge, because there's so much federal money out there, but unless folks in the community know what the options are, how can we ever get those resources down to touch down? So I know Abby was probably going to add
and Ms.
something
Jill,
too.
What you just said, remember when we were at the meeting at the Ag Museum and the Corps of Engineers and all those people that were there, they said those same things right there. And here's the thing about it, to my brother right here. A lot of people in our neighborhoods, Colonia, on back down to McLeod, like he said, they work. But see, this is why we were warning. I was going out into the neighborhoods talking to people, and people still have their own ideas about. A lot of them are stuck on this file because some back there in River Run right now are moving. Selling their houses, and the lady told me yesterday, Miss Lily, she would have been here today, but she has to go to a funeral. Her thing, and she's packing up to move, and she says she didn't want to move. She said, but if she heard it was a buyout, and then this, and see, you just hear this and you hear that, and that's not true. And nobody from my cup has ever said anything about that. But this is why I was telling folks in our neighborhood, in our cul-de-sacs, come to these meetings so you'll know what's what, and then you can make your own decision about, you know, what's what, because like around where you all live up close up to the police department right there, the waters are further back there, but it's going to affect you all and everybody else, you know, and including those of us that have water in our homes. And my thing is, I want the elderly people to know that, you know, what's really going on, because a lot of them are concerned whether they be white or black, because we still have a mixed neighborhood, you know, and I'm just telling you what's there. And their concern is, well, I heard, you know, that they were going to buy us out, and, you know, there have been people that have been coming into the neighborhoods asking people about, you know, their properties and sending stuff in the mail, and they even called my mom, and I'm going like, and I had to tell one person, I said, don't call this house again about any property here, because nobody's selling anything, but why would all of this happen? And it's happening all across the neighborhood. And see, this is why we need to know what's going on, because our neighborhood association, these presidents, like I said, once again, all they want us to do is to join an association, give them $35 or $40 a month, and that's not going to happen.
Hey, everyone, so we have 30 minutes, and everyone has spent a good bit of yesterday cooking some oxtail soup for all of us. So if you look at the agenda, it's not just lunch, but it's lunch and fellowship, so we want to keep this conversation going, and we can even keep it like it is, like we're talking to each other, not just small conversations. But before we do, I do want to pass the mic over to Abby, because I think she was going to respond to a statement about alternatives.
So, tell me your name again.
Carl Nichols.
Okay, thank you, Carl. So I just wanted to answer your question specifically, Abby Brayman from Pearl River Keeper, because you're right. It's not just, you know, one lake is bad. We need, well, what is the alternative? And so the Corps of Engineers actually has given us alternatives. The levee board never did. They pretty much said we want the one lake project. Now the levee board, when they did their meetings, they said we have a couple options that we're looking at. One of them is the one lake project, which they're calling Alternative C. But there's also a non-structural options, they call it, which would be the buyouts and floodproofing. And another option is a combination of moving the levees back, non-structural measures, using the reservoir, things like that, a combination plan. So the good thing for the community is you don't have to just go to these meetings and say, we don't want the lake plan. You can look at the other options and say, we would want them. And so I think that's a benefit to us now. And for example, it's already worked. The levee board did not have any plan to look at any of the tributaries that are flooding. Purple Creek runs through your neighborhood. And Lynch Creek, where you were showing Jim Hill High School that floods all the time. Those tributaries were not part of the one they planned to look at those at all. The Corps listened to the community and said, okay, these studies that we're doing now, one of the reasons why their study and their release has still been delayed is because they're looking at the tributaries and looking at the whole community as a whole. So if the One Lake project doesn't do that, but the combination plan does, then you and as a community can work together, and maybe not everybody agrees that the combo plan is the right one, but it'd be something for you all to talk about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the reason why the Corps looked at the tributaries, which were not included in the original One Lake plan, is because some students from Berkeley, they did a study, and what they studied was the tributaries. And I guess it was the Corps picked it up and they started looking at it. But their focus is on the creeks and what can be done in order to make the creeks more healthier and everything like that. How can we protect our communities from flash flooding, which is a major, major, major crisis? It's just not the 3 communities that you all live in. I get flooded on my street floods all the time, and then there's flash flooding. So flooding as a whole is a major problem in the city of Jackson, as everyone knows. But I think we have an opportunity here to be at the forefront of bringing about a community-driven solution. And I think that's where we want to go.
And listening to everything that I'm hearing, I just want to say that most of the information I've gotten up to this point was driven by my neighborhood association. And so not historically knowing the nature of the presidents or the mindset of the association, I will say personally, I would encourage you to re-engage with your neighborhood association and then determine that this is not their cause or that is not their cause. Because I do know that our neighborhood association, which is Parkway and Colonial, it's a big part of what we're trying to utilize to keep the neighborhood informed with our street captains and our advocates of information. So if you're a part of that association, I would definitely encourage you to become active again, because I think if you've been over there any period of time, you probably had your stints. I've been active, I've not been active, I've been present, I've been unconcerned. But I do also know that even in the association of residents, some of my concerns are not the same as my neighbor's concerns. I'm sitting beside a person that lives, if I can call it this, on the other side of Sedgwick. And anytime there's a flooding, they're concerned. Whereas at my house, specific flooding historically have not been an issue. But what this project causes me to see is that what affects one of us affects all of us. So even though we'll come together without the same concerns, we have a collective concern. And so we have to come together because the voice is in the numbers, and we can move forward with a united mindset and conversation, even though our specific concerns are not the same. So for us, it's our neighborhood association. That's the biggest platform to bring us all together at this point.
And you have a great one. You do. And when I was referring to that, I'm talking about Canton Club.
Don't call it.
Because see, I live there and I know what's going on there.
Right.
So yours is okay though.
And we have representation on our community advisory board from Parkway, and Parkway has been involved in this process from the very beginning. So, do you know Mr. and Mrs. Pugh?
I don't call no name, but yes, I know. I don't know Ms. Pugh specifically.
They have been involved in the very beginning.
Oh, yes. I know about her first name.
Okay.
Just like you and Miss Ramon. I forgot your last name.
We love Taylor Williams.
Okay.
So,
are all about inclusion. And when Ron gets back, when he gets the mic back, I want everyone to know that our representatives on the levy board, Supervisor Graham, and also Mayor Lumumba, they represent us on that board. We sent letters of invitation to Graham, to the mayor, to the secretary of the Army, and also to the Vicksburg office. We got a response from the secretary of the Army, and the letters are over on the resource table. We received a response from the Vicksburg office. Who we did not receive a response from was Graham and Mayor Lumumba. And I'm gonna park that right there.
I'm not surprised.
You say something about Graham?
No, we
And we'll be talking about the letters that we sent. And we will provide a copy of each of the letters of invitation and the responses that we got, that we received back.
But he did send an email again,
Yes.
and as of yesterday, we were out in the community, and we knew that was gonna happen, and it wasn't 30 minutes later, Warren got an email, the same email that he sent back about people misinforming people and yada, yada, this, and that. That's not what this is about. We were out with the students yesterday, taking them on tour and in the neighborhood, as we did with the first crew that came from Columbia, and we have a platform, the website, and all this that has come into fruition. So people can look and see what's at hand. And as I was telling them about that truck right there, well, that's one of the Hall Records trucks that came back in and moved some of our furniture and our belongings out. That one of those pictures right there from the flooding. I mean, come on, let's just be real. And I'm like this here. I call a spade a spade. I mean, I'm not talking about anybody or this, that, or the other, but we've got to call what is there, truthfully for what it is. I mean, we are all here trying to address this flooding concern. And brother, like I said, I know you have a good community, but I was referring back to our Canton Club. We've got some work that has to be done in conjunction with this flood, because between now and the start of the flooding season, as we call it in the spring of the year, who's to say between now and Thanksgiving and Christmas that it's not going to flood again? You see, we're like sitting ducks, and the next thing we know, this water can come, and it's an act of God that it hadn't done for the last 3 times. If y'all remember what I told y'all yesterday. And notice how the waters went around us from the hurricane just here recently, the rain, and they've been held off. And it's been a dry season for quite some time. So who's to say that rain is not going to come, and we'll be right back at the same point, looking at this water again, coming up here, forcing us out of our homes, and we'll be right where we are now. So we have to be.
One thing I do want to mention is maybe at another community meeting, Juan can speak to this, but Juan was able to look through the document that was provided in 2018, the plan for the One Lake, and pull the page that said how much flood risk reduction was going to happen in each neighborhood.
Yes.
And he put it on a map. And I'll tell you, the Canton Club neighborhood, according to the 2018 VEIS, would receive maybe 2 feet of flood risk reduction. I know some people who have had 4 feet of water in their homes, so 2 feet's better, but it's still 2 feet of water. So that is where the buyouts came out. The DEIS said, since we can't give y'all the best flood risk reduction with the One Lake plan, we could offer y'all some buyouts. Now let me tell you, down in Eastover, south, along the One Lake project, those communities, that area was going to get 8 feet of flood risk reductions. So it depends where you live on that, how much flood risk reduction you're going to get. Now this is something that we never received from the levy board. I haven't ever heard from Supervisor Graham. So it's very important to understand how much flood risk reduction you're going to get. So I just wanted to mention that. That's something maybe going forward that you all can think about.
And on that point, and also to Ramona's point about the buyout reference in that appendix, we over there not only have the letters that we sent to our elected officials and administrative officials at the Corps. Not only that, we also have their responses, at least from the Corps. The Corps of Engineers was courteous enough to actually get back to us. Unfortunately, Mayor Lamamba and Supervisor Graham were not. But we also have snippets of those documents from the appendix, just in case you maybe saw a text message from Mr. Graham, and maybe you just want to see the document yourself. I have it over there, and if that's not enough, I can also give you a very easy URL to go to it to see the document.
We're going to have
yourself.
all of this
So,
data, all of this information up
transparency
on the
stuff.
website. Yeah.
So anyway, I will.
It's time to
Yes.
close
Yes.
out. I just want to say thank you so much to our guests, to Jill. Abby is not a guest. Abby is with us through thick and thin, and Jill is too. And to Louis, to the students, to Professor Horton, and our team, who is just absolutely phenomenal. You know, Juan puts so much work into this work, into this project, into this campaign. And our technical person, Albert, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. You know, I'm a writer. And I'm an organizer, and I'm an activist, and I'm proud to say I'm an activist, right? So we're going to ask, we're going to close this out with prayer. Thank you for coming.
Before you do.
Yes, sir.
All right. Being a former military guy, okay? Well, you'd never form, really. My name is Money Powell III. It really doesn't matter.
That's a good name.
Hey, thanks a lot. This is pretty simple stuff. It's just a matter of who wants control. Down in New Orleans, a place that's naturally so many feet below sea level already, they found a way in order to create a solution, didn't they? They did. You can do the same thing here if you really want to. I graduated from, what was that, Callaway High School several decades ago, all right? I look at it like this. If you want something bad enough, you're going to make it happen. If you want to survive, you're going to make a way for it. Now, something that I saw, because I was an engineer in the United States Army, been checking that river out for a while and how it meanders, okay? It's all about building a retaining wall on both sides to relieve the pressure, or to build a channel that's long enough, all right? And I'd already figured out where to actually go with this thing. Right? But the person that I actually spoke to, he knew it was a good idea. Someone up on the reservoir, he knew it was an outstanding idea, but he kept throwing in this one lake project. Yeah, he kept throwing that in, but he knew the idea that I came up with was spectacular. Now, the 3 bridges that were created down in around the New Orleans, Louisiana area. You have one that's 5.1 miles long. You have the other one going over Lake Pontchartrain. We know that's 24 miles. And then there's the other one. It's on 55. That one's, what's that, 22.2 miles or something like that. In short, they found a way how to be able to cross a bridge. And the costs of those bridges, knowing that you're dealing with concrete, all this other, it costs an immense amount of money. But this project right here is far less than that. There's absolutely no reason why something can be done, why something can't be done. You build retaining walls around the Pearl River to control the water. You won't have this issue. You won't. There's a funny turn that this Pearl River makes. That's why it's meandering and coming over into our neighborhood where we live now. But if you don't do anything about that, we're just going to go in circles. You can talk about all the meetings, so forth and so on. That's great. But until you actually get out and put pressure on the people that you elect in office, don't expect any changes, okay?
Thank you. I'm just going to close us out with prayer. I think that there'll be one more at least to come behind me and bless the food, which they said something about oxtail, so I'm looking forward to it. Let us pray. Our God and our Father, we thank you for all your many blessings and this opportunity you've given us to come together to gather information. We do know, Father, without a doubt, that unity is a great portion of the process that make things work out for good. So we come asking, as we move forward, gathering information and proposing what's best for all of us. We know, Father, that some will be more impacted and affected by whatever decisions are made than others, but we also recognize that as we move forward as one voice, great things can happen. We continue to ask that you bless us with not only the causes and the problems, but also the solutions that the greater man can be able to prevail, and all things can work out for our good. We ask that you bless this food, that it be nourishing to our bodies, and bless all those who have a part in being a part of the solution. We thank you for all your blessings. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen.
Wait a minute.